All right, people, we're back. Victory and Vices podcast. Me, Rory Spooner, James Veck, Reece Henley, and our special guest, Mr. FPL Winner, Aaron, a.k.a. Crookz. Welcome, bro. Appreciate you coming on. So we got plenty to discuss. We got loads of stuff that we potentially missed out on in the summer that we'll touch upon in other pods, but we're kind of going for the big news now. So for me, I wanted to start with the transfer window. We didn't do our usual transfer videos because everything's kind of happened really quickly with it being sort of a World Cup summer. So I want to start with each individual and get you guys to pick your transfer of the summer thus far. So what I'll do, Vecky, I'll start with you. Who do you think has been the best signing this summer so far?
Well, this wasn't particularly straightforward to me because I jotted down all the names from the big clubs and just thought the obvious one to go for is Erling Haaland because of what he's done at his two previous clubs, especially at Dortmund. You think City sign him, he's the missing jigsaw piece. He's going to come here and he's going to wipe the floor with the Prem and just, bang in 30 plus goals. But I'm a little bit apprehensive to pick that. I just got a weird feeling that I don't think he's going to flop, but I just don't know if he's going to have the same impact as he did in the Bundesliga. So instead, I've gone for Yves Bissouma to Spurs because I just got a little bit more faith in that transition from Brighton to Spurs in midfield. And I think it was 30 million they paid for him or somewhere around there, which I think is a hell of a deal. I thought, with I think United were potentially after him 1 point Arsenal, and I thought he would have gone for maybe closer to 50, 60 million. Look at some of the other transfers. But yeah, I think he was very highly rated, wasn't he, with Brighton? I think rightly so. So yeah, I think that's going to be my signing of the summer. I think he's going to do good things.
Cool. So what are you saying? Who's your top signing of the summer thus far?
I'd say I'm saying as like James, like Haaland is obviously in the conversation. He's big, he's strong. I think he suits the Prem and stuff like that. Though. But again, there is obviously that question mark. He's playing in a great team at the end of the day with City. But I got a bit of a controversial one. I'd say is Jesus for Arsenal.
Yeah, no.
I think being the main man at Arsenal, and know where he gets in positions and stuff like that. And just they kind of play I think Arteta wants them to play the similar way as City.
Yeah.
And it's all based around obviously that those wingers getting those balls into the box, and he arrives at the box quite well. He around that side. I know he played a wing a lot for City, but being that main focal point and being as much as you can say the big dog now in Arsenal.
Yeah.
I think that at the end of the day, he could actually do quite well, and just linking up with the people like Saka and Smith Rowe, Martinelli, all these the pace that he'll have around him and supplying him. I think he actually generally could have a good season, which, as a United fan, is probably not the best thing to be saying.
Yeah, no, it's a good show, mate. Yeah, no, Jesus is a name I actually mentioned earlier in our WhatsApp, so we'll come back to him in a bit actually because I wanted to get another opinion on him. But Reece, who are you picking so far as the signing of the summer?
Yeah, the obvious one is Erling Haaland, isn't he? I mean, he's done it all in the Bundesliga. Look at his numbers for Norway. They're ridiculous. Basically averages a goal a game pretty much across his career. So put him into a team which has scored loads of goals without a striker seems to be the missing piece essentially for Pep. But one of the things that I was concerned about with Haaland, one of the things that I read was that one of the decisions behind his decision to switch to City was the fact that Real Madrid weren't prepared to rest him if he had a niggle in the week. Whereas City, it seems that he's picked them. One of the reasons is because they will frequently rest him. So I'll be disappointed if they are able to do that and they do constantly rotate with a player like Haaland. But I think I actually was going to say the same player as James. I think he's Bissouma. If you look at the price they paid for him first and foremost, which is a snip, I think about 30 million, but also just the impact he's going to have in that team, just how much he improves them. You look at who he's going to go into the team instead of, and that's probably going to be Harry Winks. That's quite the improvement. Harry Winks is absolutely dreadful at football. So I would go with Yves Bissouma myself.
Right, interesting. So we are Bissouma, Jesus, Bissouma. We've all kind of acknowledged Haaland's the big dog this summer. I will throw a little curveball in, right? and I wanted the opinion of you lads as well. Pep Guardiola's biggest failure in football is Zlatan Ibrahimovic, or at least I think it is. It went completely sour at Barcelona. And Zlatan Ibrahimovic was very much like Haaland. He's the big guy, nice touch. I think Zlatan's probably technically better. Maybe Haaland's a better finisher. But he just didn't fit in with what Pep Guardiola wanted. So when I did the Manchester City January transfer video, which I think I put out a week before he signed, Julian Alvarez went to Man City. Now, I picked Julian Alvarez as my signing of the summer. He reminds me a lot of Roberto Firmino. When you play a certain style, you want somebody who's dynamic, quick, compressed, a little bit like Jesus, actually, the thing he did for City. I think Alvarez is a naturally better fit than Erling Haaland. I don't think he's as good a goal scorer, but Alvarez is a very good goal scorer. He presses from the front. He's a beast defensively. He's going to get in all those positions, create loads of chances, score loads of goals himself. I can't find his transfer fee, but I think it was relatively small, 14 million.
It was cheap.
Yeah, so for me, I was going to go with Alvarez. I mean, what do you think, lads? Do you think, obviously, Alvarez himself, I know a little about him because when I was doing the research for the transfer video, I watched a few games in Argentina. But, I'll ask Crookz, for example. Do you know a lot about Alvarez? Anything about him at all?
Bits, I've seen, videos on YouTube, but not the ones highlight reels, but people deep diving him. And he seems like a bit of a player, young and obviously can develop. He's in a good environment, let's be honest, with Pep. He can develop players. And as you said, he seems like he's in that kind of mold of that Mahrez kind of way. Good, strong dribbler, can, deliver, but obviously got the finishing. And obviously that, South American flair that obviously is always a bonus for anyone. But with him, he could potentially be one of these dark horses that at the beginning of the season he's just a bit part player, but at the end of the season, he could be starting week in, week out. From what I've heard from people, not from people, from obviously the the internet, the World Wide Web, who we got that at the end of the day, he has got a high ceiling. It's not just he's coming as a squad development player really, but he has got that ceiling to develop and actually be, a tidy player.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think United paid, I think it was 15 million for Tyrell Malacia, and City only spent 14 million on Alvarez. I'm just having a look now, actually. The 14 million for a lad that could realistically be a starter for the next decade, play, multiple games for City in Argentina, I think's pretty good. Becky, quick question for you, because I'm going to go around the houses again. If I said to you, right, you've got a budget this summer, and you can pick either Jesus, Haaland, Darwin Nunez, or Alvarez, who are you going for and why?
Depends what club I'm managing, Spooner, if I'm being honest.
It's back FC, that's who it is.
Yeah, well, for City, do you know this Alvarez thing? When he joined, there was a lot of talk about him going straight back out on loan.
Yeah.
Initially, which I was like, there's this huge hype about this guy that could possibly be the next big star, and then they're going to let him go back on loan. But obviously, it doesn't seem that they've done that now. Was it Haaland, Alvarez,
Nunez, or Jesus?
I think out of them lot, if I'm Pep, then I'm gonna have to go Haaland because I've just bumped off Jesus. Nunez, he could be the Uruguayan Lukaku, or he could just have had a shit start this season. But he did bang in 4 yesterday, so I would go with Haaland. The thing is with Alvarez, there's too many question marks at the moment. I'm not going to confess to being to watching a lot of the Argentinian league football, but you just don't know what you're getting from over there. I think Jesus actually came from it was Brazil, wasn't it? He came from it's like Sao Paulo or something like that, and he kind of hit the ground running. But I'm going to go with that Alvarez doesn't turn out to be what we think he's going to be, just because he wouldn't be the first player for that to happen to with all that hype from Brazil or Argentina. So I would go for Haaland. He's probably the best bet.
Well, from my perspective, I mean, it's always going to be Haaland. I mean, it's not even a question really which one you'd pick. But in terms of Alvarez, I think in my mind, there's no doubt he'll be a big success. Reason being is that he's playing in that team, and I think that the standard that a footballer needs to be to succeed in that team is lower, just because of the people around him making chances. You look at Raheem Sterling, scored 100 Premier League goals at Man City, without actually ever being world class. Look at the other members of the 100 Club, and they're, a lot of them are iconic players. Raheem Sterling never really did it to that level and still managed to get 100 goals. So I think it's reasonable to expect Alvarez to score 10 goals as a minimum, providing that he plays. He will be in Pep's rotation system, so it's going to be hard to measure. But look, it's an easy question. Haaland, his numbers speak for himself.
Worth pointing out, though, Spooner, not everybody I know, like Reece is saying about lower standard, but not everybody that goes there is a success. Look at Grealish, for example.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of money spent on Grealish, £100 million. Could have gone anywhere, expected to be a star. Relatively underwhelming first season. When you've got a lot of similar kind of players or players of that ilk, that kind of flair, attacking minded, it's not necessarily easy to just be a success. So
yeah, I suppose you are right. There is a minimum standard. I mean, we discussed this when Grealish was heavily linked to Manchester United a couple of years ago. And I told you, lads, I had my concerns then. I've never really thought that Grealish would sort of have that kind of ceiling to be in, the Premier League winning and, and Champions League sort of challenging kind of winger. I never thought that was his ceiling. So as long as Alvarez has the potential for that, then yeah, maybe. But you are right in what you're saying, James. Sorry?
Say that again, Spooner.
Crookz, hear me?
No, I didn't hear you. And what did you say? Sorry.
Sorry, who would you pick out of those strikers?
I'd say it's the same. It's like if you were to look at the price and stuff like that, I would say Haaland. You have to go with him. I think he just brings he's got a bit of everything for his game. Strong, pacey. He can hold the ball up. He can go in behind. He's got that versatility about him, as well as being very good finisher, as you can see by his goal record. And it's just all those little things that add up, and you just think he's a well-rounded player, and he's got so many years now in front of him. He's still obviously so young. So when you factor all those in, I don't think you can look at anyone else. So I'm saying the other, Alvarez would be a good at 40 million. I think you said is a good price, but I think you just for the price that they paid for Haaland at the end of the day, you just if I had that and that was in front of me with my budget, I would go with them 100%.
Yeah, I think that they would have made a profit from that Sterling and Haaland deals. I think they probably paid less for Haaland than they sold Sterling for. So that's outrageous business.
Isn't it 52 is the reported fee for Haaland and 47.5 for Sterling? But I'm a little bit sceptical of what else is included in that deal.
Agent fees and all that, yeah.
Yeah, they say 52 million on the surface, but I'd imagine it probably not far off double with everything else included. But yeah, you're right. They've sold Zinchenko for 30, Sterling. Who's the other one? They've just Jesus. So their books are not too far off being balanced, they really at the moment. So it's good business.
And you could see with them last season at times, they won the league at a canter again. I know Liverpool did push them a little bit, but they were always going to win the league last year. And it did seem at times that they were doing that in sort of second gear at times. It did look that they needed a bit of a freshen up. So I think it's definitely going to be exciting what they do this season.
Yeah. Let me reverse engineer that question. And Reece, I'll start with you this time. Who is the transfer that concerns you the most? The one you think is the biggest risk?
I mean, there's been a lot of good transfer activity this summer. Really good activity. You look at people like Darwin Núñez, and we touched on it, could be anything, but I think I'll come back to him later on why I think he'll be a good signing. You look at people like Christensen in Barcelona on a free. Calvin Phillips for 40 million is good business. Jesus, Zinchenko. The one that concerns me always has throughout his whole career, pretty much, is Richarlison. I think that for that one, I mean, I think they paid about 60 million euros or 55 million quid or something for him. I mean, it was nonsensical money when Everton paid 50 million quid for him, and how they've actually managed to turn a profit on him is anyone's guess. But he'll go to Spurs. Will he get in ahead of Kulusevski, Son and Kane? I'm not sure. So in any case, he might be a really good sub to have, but are you paying 60 million for a sub? I'm not sure. I don't think he's got the quality for top four.
Okay. Yeah, no, do you know, it's a very fair assessment. I thought the same thing. A bit odd given Kulusevski is was such a revelation. But what about you, Crookz? Again, if I said to you now, who's the transfer that concerns you, confuses you most? Who are you looking at thinking, I'm not really feeling it?
I'd say I'd probably go down the Sterling route. I think he could get slightly exposed in the Chelsea team. You know, obviously he's so used to the way Pep plays coming in. I think they're quite different systems they both play between City and Chelsea. So I think at the end of the day, the way he plays and obviously his pace, and he'll always be there, but I don't think his finishing is as good. If it can make any sense, is as good as what we think it is because of the positions City players put other City players in. Yeah. So obviously they get a lot of situations where it's that FIFA sweaty goal just across the box and there's no keeper even to put it past. So at the end of the day,
even then he misses.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean. I think 50 million, was it 47 million, 50 million? It seems a little. That's what concerns me, is a little bit higher than even though obviously he is. Let's get it wrong. He's done the job at City and he's done things, but I think he could get exposed playing that, and easily we could see him just sitting on the bench and Timo Werner taking that left hand side, where obviously we expect probably Sterling to play on that left. So he's the gamble, I think. But then could be sitting here in a couple of months now and he fits right in, and then I'll eat my words.
What about you, Becky? Who are you choosing? Who do you think is the biggest gamble?
Yes. So similar to what Crook said with Sterling, I actually said to you boys, was it last week, Twitter's going wild about this masterstroke of a signing that is Raheem Sterling. And I was just thinking, am I the only guy that just thinks this is really bang average signing? Because he's 27 years old, you can argue at your peak. And if you're that good of a player, why would a manager like Pep Guardiola let you go if you weren't dispensable? We've all touched upon it. He normally needs about 5 or 6 chances to score. And yeah, he's reached 100 goals. It's 100 more Premier League goals than I'll ever get, which is a huge achievement. But in that City team, those chances do get created. They win 5, 6, 7-0 sometimes. Put me in that team, I'm sure I could knock one in if you're just going to play it across the face of goal. So he does concern me. But largely, Spurs transfer window, which Reece mentioned, that, apart from Bissouma, concerns me for the whole rest of the players they've signed. Everyone's going on about how good Spurs' transfer window has been. I'm looking down the list now, I'm thinking, well, is it really? Richarlison, 60 million, will he even get the games? You've got Perisic, one that concerns me because, we were thinking, could he go to United when Mourinho was there, because he was sort of coming to his later, better years. Well, we're fast forwarding, 3-4 years again now? I know it's only a free transfer, but I can see that come to nothing. You got Longley.
Sorry, on Perisic, he's actually going to be played as a wing back. What do you think of that?
A gamble, personally, but it's just his age and coming to the league like the Premier League and then putting him as a wing back. What he's going to be expected to do, I'm just not confident in that one. Reece, I know you think Longley is absolutely dreadful.
Yeah.
And then they've got Spence, who could be anything. Yeah. Agree with Sterling, and I'm not so sure about Perisic.
Yeah, there's some solid choices there, lads. I'll go for a United pick. My biggest concern is Lisandro Martinez. I don't know if he's going to be, Maldini or Marcus Rojo, quite frankly.
The Butcher.
Yeah, the butcher, yeah. It's interesting, right? Ajax are great at finessing money out of other clubs. So they got, I think the bidding started by Arsenal at 25, then it reached 40, then it reached 45, then it reached 55 plus add-ons, then it got to about 60 plus add-ons. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, is he an upgrade on what's there? And I know that United defence isn't great. Varane is, in a wheelchair most of the season. Maguire is Maguire. I still don't know what Lindelof really does. And look, technically, from what I've read, Lisandro Martinez is a very good footballer. He's got a good left foot, but I'd like a defender that can actually defend. And him being 5'9" in the Premier League, he's probably I think he is the smallest centre back in the Premier League. I find that very concerning, especially if you have Malacia, who's like 4'9" beside him. All of a sudden, if you attack United's left-hand side, there's a serious problem there. Like, I don't think that United team, they've done okay business, but I'm not massively impressed. And I wanted to ask Crookz, as obviously you being a United fan, what do you think of the business they've done so far?
It's hard. Obviously, they got budgets and all that to work to, and they got a bloated squad, so that makes it even harder on top, I would say. Like, obviously, players on big wages and not being able to get them out the door. So, but from what they've done, like, I quite obviously with Martinez, I think he potentially could give good balance to the team. Obviously, with the passing range and, like, obviously, as you said, he's got a good left footer. But, like, obviously, everyone is highlighting that, like, oh, he's 5'9", he's going to struggle in the Prem and stuff like that. But you can highlight just two players in, like, previous football history, like Puyol and Cannavaro. They were 5'9", 5'10", and they didn't do a bad job. And I think football is, like, very, like, progressive at the moment, that, like, it is going that you don't need these, like, 6'5" people in your back just to head the ball out, because the ball is so much more on the ground. So you do need these, like, technical, gifted centre-backs who can play the ball. And if you just look at, like, just, like, Pep's system, or, like, obviously a higher press. So, like, that's so key. You know, it's not going to be like Solskjaer having to sit back and just try and absorb and counter. He wants everyone to sit up, look for interceptions. And if you actually look at, like, Martinez's stats, his, like, interceptions and stuff like that, it's quite high. And that's just to progress the ball further. But the Malacia, I think it's good. It's good competition for Shaw. I think Shaw always performs better when he's got someone pushing him. So when Tellez came in initially, Shaw went up a bit and he started playing a bit better. I saw that, like, when he was coming into the Euros for England last year, and now you call him Schubert or Carlos. And at the end of the day, I think that's because he was in the England environment and he had that competition. Yeah. But now, obviously, Tellez has slipped off. He's realised, like, oh, he's not really that competition. I'm going to get in here week in, week out, and I'm going to perform. I'll be there. Obviously, Eriksen's official now, isn't it? So I think that's a positive. Like, I think that's a really good signing on a free. He's straight in as a Marta replacement. He's worked with Ten Hag already when he was coming back to fitness. When he didn't have a club, so he kind of knows what is wanted from Ten Hag. I think he can play multiple positions, so that's a positive for squad rotation. He can play in the 10. I think he can play, further back in the 8 if need be, carrying the ball. Basically, I think somewhat Eriksen signing is a bit of a scapegoat if they don't get Frenkie De Jong. So he could easily slip there, and they could easily drop in a slightly more defensive-minded player to the right of him, and just leave him create along with with the likes of Bruno, Sanchez and stuff like that. Sancho, sorry. But I don't know where we go from here, really. There's so many names being floated about with the transfer business at the moment, and before, United were very leaky. You could find out where they were coming and what they were doing, but now it seems a bit more reserved. So hopefully there's a couple more to come, because I think we need more. But I think that all really does hinge on people going the other way as well. So it's been good. I'm happy so far, but I think we do need one or two more in.
I know we've been all this already, and Reece comes in a minute, right? I feel similar. But Becky, with you being the other United fan alongside me, Frenkie De Jong, right? But listen, Yay or nay? Do you want him, and do you want him at 300 grand a week and 85 million pounds?
So my stance on Frenkie De Jong has changed, I think, throughout the course of the window evolving. Initially, when they were saying, what the hiccups were in the deal and that, he didn't want to go, but Barca wanted him to go, you were just thinking, maybe that's just a bit of talk and he's just a little bit reluctant. But the more the transfer window's gone on, all you keep hearing is that he genuinely doesn't want to leave Barcelona and the club, albeit their transfer activity says different. I'm sure we'll touch upon that another time. Make out like he has to go and they have to get rid of him. But there's the big elephant in the room, which is his 17 million pound salary that is not being paid. And obviously that's why they want to try and engineer a deal to get that covered. But if he genuinely doesn't want to leave the club and he's going to leave kicking and screaming and they're just going to fly him to Manchester, then I don't really want that for 400 grand a week in our team. Because, Ten Hag's come in, he's got a clear way from what the players and everyone is saying of how he wants to play. And you want the players to 100% buy into what he wants. And fully want to be there and be part of the project. If someone like De Jong doesn't fully want that, then I would look at alternative targets. And it's getting, to that point in the transfer window now where they were saying early on, Ten Hag wants to play as a part of his pre-season tour. He wants to get, time to work with them. You start leaving it much longer, it's coming up to August soon. They have to look at Neves, Tielemans, maybe other targets. Because at least they're Premier League players, which are, perhaps that a little bit more adapted to the league than what De Jong would be. So I just want a resolution in it, to be honest with you. And it doesn't look like we're going to get one from De Jong anytime soon. So.
Yeah. I know your take on it. We spoke about De Jong, but for the general public, let them know how you feel about it.
Yeah. Enter the pantomime villain, right? I mean, on the subject of Man United, they are more and more nowadays becoming the experts of putting square pegs in round holes. They signed Eriksen. Watch him play left wing next season. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The only real spots in their team where they have, established players who pick themselves on the team sheet would be at number 10 in Bruno Fernandes and up front in Ronaldo. So what do they do? What do they do as their first signing? The summer they brought in a number 10, which didn't make a lot of sense to me. Albeit it's on a free, and he is a very good player. But if he's going to start, and if he's going to start in the kind of position where Pogba played, it didn't work for Pogba, and it probably won't work for Eriksen. Pogba's obviously left, and regardless of your opinion on Paul Pogba, that does make any team worse. The thing that intrigues me about Lisandro Martinez is that, and in fact, in my opinion, his only redeeming quality is probably the fact that he can, or they say that he can interchange between centre half and defensive midfield. Now, it doesn't look to me that the Ten Hag is the type of manager that will play at 5 at the back. And so when you look at the iconic 5'9" throughout history, I think Cannavaro played with Maldini and Nesta. And you look at Beckenbauer, who played as a sweeper, and dictated play in that sense. So unless he's playing as a defensive midfielder, which is a massive problem area, it does have red flags, as you mentioned, Spooner. I mean, I think you've been quite level-headed on this one. It does have a lot of red flags. You've massively overpaid for an Ajax player from the Dutch league. And to build on what Crookz was saying, is it as big a area as it was in terms of defending aerial crosses? Well, Trent Alexander-Arnold and James Ward-Prowse, just between those two players last year, put in 600 successful crosses into the box. That's a lot to defend, especially when players like Erling Haaland are moving to Man City. Darwin Núñez is 6'2". The top clubs will have a distinct advantage in terms of their area ability. All that being said, Harry Maguire's form last year was awful. So is he going to improve Man United? I'm unsure. Is he going to elevate them to that top 4 position? I don't know. I would have my doubts.
Yeah, same. What about you, Crooks? What do you think of the potential Frenkie De Jong signing?
It's been dragged on. Like, to be fair, sick to death about hearing about them. I'd rather just be as like James, like either done or not done. I generally think he would be a United player right now if it weren't for that 17 million salary that's outstanding. I think like the deals like between the two clubs, how much they're paying is done. I personally think like personal terms are either easily going to be agreed or already agreed. We just don't know about it. I just think the reason that he doesn't want to leave, he like any of us, if we were owed by an employer X amount of money, you would do everything to get that money before leaving the job. You know, they're basically like, they just turned to him and said, we need you to drop your wages so our club can survive. I think it was because of COVID, basically. We're like financially completely unstable, and that's their fault, their club. And now, if you're sitting there, you're watching them sign Lewandowski, paying him big bucks probably, wherever else they've signed on freeze, because they're all going to have big wages if they're on freeze. Was it Kessie, is it, from AC Milan? He gone there on a free. So they're all going to have tidy wages. And at the end of the day, I think he does, like, maybe like United if he wasn't his first choice, but I think that Ten Hag angle has had a bit to play. He's probably been told that, like, you know, you're going to be my main man here. And I'm not too concerned, say, about him not being in early enough. Like, obviously, the main thing is, like, team chemistry, that he'd have to gel with the players, get to know them, this is how I work. But as in for systems, I think, like, he would be able to slot into the system quite easy. But, again, I just would rather it done with. And if that's not going to happen, I think we should just be popping over the Leicester City and just saying, here's 30 million, can we have Tillmans, please? Because, you know, I think that's a perfect backup option for the price, if you have to factor in. Because I don't think, if you look around the market, there's not many other people in that role for a tidy price anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree.
No one that Man United will sign will be at a tidy price. And we'll come back to this because we're going to talk about Newcastle later on. But the Man United have built a reputation for themselves as we want this player, and eventually, after about a year of negotiating, we'll give you double the price. So if they did want to go for Tielemans, they could expect 60 million or more. So I wouldn't really think about the money too much. 85 million is far too much anyway for De Jong, but everyone you're going to sign is going to be inflated essentially. To build on sort of his ability and things, and it does come with red flags again for me. I think it's more the position that United are trying to fill, right? He is a deeper lying player, which is a problem area. You look at Fred, Matic, McTominay, not up to it, and certainly not up to top 4 standard, which is where Man United want to strive to be back at essentially. The concern I would have is he's being replaced by Frank Kessie, again, the player who I don't think is good enough. So why are they trying to replace him with a player that's also not good enough? I'm a big fan of Pedri and Messi. So over the last 2 years, I've been watching a little bit more Barcelona. And they have been, but Pedri and Gavi have been outperforming De Jong. De Jong has sort of slipped in the team. There has been a lot of mismanagement. Look, Barca have been going backwards. It's not all De Jong's fault, but I think he's been underwhelming as a signing. So to go out and pay 85 million for him, I'm really not sure. But there is the Erik Ten Hag connection there. He's played in that system before. Obviously, it didn't work for Hakim Ziyech coming to the Prem. You look at some other players, hasn't quite worked for. But I think it would be okay from a strategic point of view, from Erik Ten Hag. The concern that I have is there doesn't seem to be an ability by Erik Ten Hag at the moment at Manchester United to lure any players that don't have an Ajax connection. Why? Why does no one want to play from that?
Becky, I'll let you answer that one. So why do people not... Are United just not a big draw anymore, Becky? What do you think?
Well, I think is it that they can't lure players in that aren't linked to Ajax, or is it just not the angle that Ten Hag wants to go about it? You know, we don't know behind the scenes. Has he tried to attract other players that aren't linked to Ajax and it's been unsuccessful? Or is he just the case that he's got a way that he likes to play and a system that he likes to use, a style of football, and he feels that the players that he's worked with in the past or players that suit what he does is the best way to go about it. And I think time will tell with that, because he's trying to get the band back together. Van der Beek, De Jong, that midfield that worked so well for him, not just in the Dutch league, because people say, it's the Dutch league, but they were tearing apart some of the top teams in the Champions League as well with that midfield. So it's kind of an unanswerable question. I don't know if they've tried to get other targets that aren't from Ajax or Dutch and failed. I just genuinely think that might be his approach and the type of play that he wants to go for.
He's demonstrated an ego now, isn't he? De Jong. It looks like as you mentioned earlier, Vec, he is kicking and screaming now. He doesn't want to leave Barca. It's not the right attitude to have, Do you want to play like that? A mercenary, essentially? I'm not sure. I would leave that one if it was me. Pursue Neves, overspend on him, overspend on Tielemans. You're going to overspend anyway, so at least overspend on a player who actually dreams of coming to Manchester United. It
is like what Crookz said as well, though. Like, sounds like he's kicking and screaming, but is it just largely due to the money? If they can get it over the line and he does sign, will they just be content Haag just create harmony, put an arm around the shoulder saying, look, I know this hasn't worked out for you. This is the project. This is what we're working towards. And then the next minute, he's happy and he's firing on all cylinders. So it's sometimes you just got to be careful how much you dive into Twitter, isn't it? And what people on Twitter are saying is happening.
Of course. One thing to remember, it's an important point as well, and I'm sure we'll do a long segment on it in another episode, and once we've all had a chance to really dive into it and what's going on at Barcelona. But it's £17 million in wages. If your employer didn't give you £100 1 week, you'd be fuming. So the guy's out of pocket 17 million. I think I'd kick off as well. I think that's important to remember.
Yeah, I'd be the same. I do as much as possible not to leave until I've got money at the end of the day.
Understandable, right?
Yeah, 100%. I will. And that's why I think that's purely why he's dragging on so long.
Yeah, the De Jong thing, I read an interesting segment on it the other day, just to streamline it. United, I find it hard to believe that United spend all this time agreeing a fee for Frenkie De Jong. And the question never came up. Well, are you going to pay him what you owe him so he can leave? Like, surely once you've agreed a fee, that's the next step, right? Like, should Barcelona go, yeah, look, he's yours, we'll pay him what we owe, and he can jump on the next flight and go. But that hasn't happened. And from what I gather, Frenkie De Jong's agent, FYI, very, very savvy guy, has told Frenkie De Jong, anytime your name comes up in the press, you're happy at your employer, you don't want to leave. Now, the reason you do that is because if this does have to go to, I think it's the Court of Arbitration for Sport, Frenkie De Jong can just paint himself as the perfect employee. I never asked to leave. I never kicked off. My wife is happy here. I've always wanted to be at my dream club. Whereas if Frenkie De Jong requests a transfer, all of a sudden then Barcelona can go, well, we're only giving you 3 million. You want to leave. So it's very messy. And to streamline it, I don't know why that conversation wasn't maybe a bit more concise with United, where they've gone, look, we've agreed a fee. Any chance you can maybe do a bank transfer and just give him what he's owed, so we can get this done? Because we're all a bit bored of it. And Barcelona are very difficult to deal with, which segues nicely into what I'm going to say next, because
just to interject on that, I mean, they'll probably end up striking a deal with him where they pay him £10 a week over the course of the next 35 years or something. It's ridiculous like that. But from a United perspective, it is getting messy. It's a PR disaster. I mean, you've had, what's the name of your MD or the
is it Richard Arnold that went down the pub?
Him and his partners have been over in Barcelona twice already. Yeah. What message does it send if you can't get that over the line after physically meeting them twice? A club like Manchester United.
Yeah, it's a mess. Well, look, De Jong has found out the hard way. I think Piqué is owed roughly around 20 million, amongst others, right? So there's a variety of people that defer. One lad that didn't expect to be leaving, but is now going, and we'll move into it, Reece, because obviously with you being a Newcastle fan, is Memphis Depay. So I wanted to get your opinion on Depay. Do you think he could join Newcastle? And is there a particular reason why Newcastle, who we built up. We've had previous, Newcastle fans on the pod saying it's going to be, raining money. Yet Newcastle, they haven't really made too many big signings. So what's your take on it all?
Yeah, well, start off with Memphis Depay. He was linked to Manchester United a while ago. I think I had numerous conversations with you both as he wasn't good enough. Would he be a good signing for Newcastle? Yes, obviously, because we're a mid-table team and we're looking to strive for 7th place. 7th or 8th place would represent for me a successful season. Very successful. And so is he good enough to get us to that level? Yes, of course. And he fills a problem area, which is sort of winger striker. Is he good enough for a team that wants to win the league? No. Hence why Barcelona are probably looking to replace him with Lewandowski, or they have already replaced him with Lewandowski. Do I think he'll sign? No. So the whole conversation is kind of redundant anyway. He comes with an ego. Will he sign for a club not in Europe? Probably not, especially in a World Cup year. Although I'd love him to come, that would be. I do feel like there is a marquee signing incoming for Newcastle based on no evidence at all. But the Newcastle one is interesting because when we got the takeover, everyone was giving it large about how we're going to buy the league. It's not right, sports washing, all that kind of rubbish that everyone was coming out with. And now Newcastle are being more conservative and sensible, and they're not splashing and throwing money at it. Everyone's now flipped the argument and trying to ridicule Newcastle for having not done that. So it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. There will always be haters, and you can't really do much about it. But it's actually not as bad as people are making out. We've spent £170 million this calendar year. That's a lot of money, and that's certainly not the kind of figures that we would have had, a year ago. The last time we did a podcast, lads, Mike Ashley owned Newcastle and Steve Bruce was the manager. Okay. Just to put it into perspective, that was less than 12 months ago. Since then, we've broken our transfer record twice on Bruno Guimaraes and now Sven Botman. Bruno Guimaraes was one of the standout players in the back half of last season. I don't think there can be any doubt on that. Eddie Howe's come in and converted Joe Linton into one of the standout midfielders in the Prem based on form. Whether that carries into this season, we've yet to be seen. I think it will. And he's also made some smart signings in Dan Burn, who hit the ground running for Newcastle, built on Brighton form. Matt Targett, who I wasn't a fan of, come in and did a great job. They've made that permanent now as well. A problem area for us was right back. They replaced him with Kieran Trippier. Did some smart business, £12 million. I think they're paying him $100,000 a week. And then now they've signed Nick Pope in goal as well to replace another problem area, which was Martin Dubravka, who sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. So it's been very good business by them, to be fair. They brought in Chris Wood, who wasn't outstanding, but took him out for relegation rival, paid through the nose for him, paying him a lot of money. I think there will be another couple of signings. They one of the problem areas for them now is Callum Wilson. Callum Wilson, a player who has proved time and again in the Premier League that he is a Premier League player. I think he's a top 7 player, maybe not a top 4 player, but certainly a top 10 player in terms of a Premier League striker. The problem is, can he stay fit? So the problem that they've got now is they've got a player who's ready-made, but they need someone who can either play with him, happy to play second fiddle, or perhaps a striker who can be shunted out onto the wing, which is not an easy fill. When I look at it, is Anthony Martial would be, for me, a perfect signing. For that reason, he's happy to sit on the bench, or rather not happy, but he would sit on the bench. He could play striker and he could play right wing. That's the kind of player they're looking at. But what they won't do, these owners, is overspend. They won't send the message to anyone that they are going to be mugged off. They have a project that they need to comply with financial fair play over the course of the next, however many years, 3, 4, 5 years. If they come and throw 300 million at it now, will the squad instantly improve? I'm not sure. Like Sunderland, a few years ago, they signed 12 players in one window, went down, because none of them players gelled together. So certainly there needs to be sense behind who you sign. And the business that they've done, 12 million for Trippier, 10 million for Nick Pope. I think they paid about 10 million for Dan Burn, 15 million for Target, and then obviously the big signings, Bruno Guimaraes and also Sven Botman. They're doing great business. They're not going to be ripped off. They were in talks with Hugo Ekitike for a long time.
Yeah.
PSG wanted something like 45 million from us. Ended up, I think, agreeing a deal with Paris Saint-Germain for 30. Our owners knew that, and they're not going to send a message. We've got all the money in the world, and they have, but they won't be ripped off. I think it's a sensible decision. Take my Newcastle hat off. It's sensible. Putting it back on, you just wanted to sign loads of players, right? It's more exciting. We've been starved off it for years under Mike Ashley. So yeah, obviously it's frustrating that we want to get all these new players in. And like I said, for the record, I think there will be one marquee signing this summer. I really do. I think you look at Man City when they had the takeover, they did sign Robinho. They threw money at it, didn't work. So whoever they do sign, they're making sure that it's a measured decision, that he fits into the squad, that they don't get ripped off. And I think it's a sustainable approach. I don't have a problem with it. It's a bit boring. It's not what everyone wanted, but it's probably from a business perspective. They're putting loads of money into the women's team. They're putting loads of money into the academy. They've built a whole new training facility, and they've managed to sell out this. They sell out all their season tickets. They've sold 35,000 memberships. Everything points to a well-run club.
Yeah. No, it looks good. Slightly off topic. We'll come on to it on another podcast. But whenever I hear Robinho, I instantly think Mason Greenwood for all the wrong reasons. So we'll touch upon that another.
More reasons than one, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Going back to Newcastle, initially I was doing a deep dive and I thought, who's going to be the surprise team this season? And I was looking at Newcastle, but then I'll come back to who I'm thinking now instead. But I wanted your opinion, lads. And Vaki, we'll start with you. Who do you think is going to be the surprise team of the season? Because there's always one that creeps up and surprises everyone.
Yeah, good question, that. Surprise in a good way, or...
Yeah. No, yeah, surprise in a good way, yeah. Not a United shit way, a good way.
Yeah, I'm quite intrigued to see what Nottingham Forest are going to do, if I'm honest. I know that the Lingard deal's over the line. I'm not, hugely up on their other signings, but massive club, massive club. And obviously, I think was it a couple of seasons back, Wolves came up, quite a big club. Then Leeds came up, and they both had quite good standout seasons where I think they were sort of in around the top 10, of just very comfortably clear of relegation and just were playing some good football. And I know a lot of people hate Leeds, but a lot of people thought it was nice to see some biggish clubs sort of doing good things in the league. So especially of all the promoted teams, I think the other two, Fulham and Bournemouth, I think they're absolute trash, and they'll be in my predictions later on. But yeah, I'm quite level of intrigue on what Forest could maybe do next season.
Okay. Oh, yeah. No, that's cool. That's a solid answer. What about you, Crookz? Who do you think, or who are you looking at that you think, they may surprise people?
It should be another boring answer just purely because it's the same as Beck. Forest is the one when I look at the whole of the table that I think could be the surprise. A bit like, Brentford this year. They've done quite well. You always have that. You have those three teams that come up, and there always seems to be one of them surprises all the other teams in the league when they play against them. And they get some good results, and they finish higher than what you expect them to. Obviously, Cooper, he seems like a good coach, someone they want to play for, etc. The team. Obviously, they've lost Spence, and they used the right wing back for them.
Yeah.
Who I think he was quite a vital part of their team last year. Obviously, he's moved on now to Spurs, but I think overall they could actually be the surprise package. As you said, relating back to Leeds, and then Wolves, obviously previous years where they've come up, done well. I think Wolves, obviously, if you wanted just a bit of an alternative, I think Wolves, from what I've read, they're trying a back four now. Neto's back as well, so they could do a bit better. Obviously, they weren't bad last year, but defensively, I think that's where they were strong last year. They didn't concede many goals. They were quite well up there. But then if they're switching to a back four, they might become more attacking minded, and these players coming in, and hopefully they'll. I don't know why, but I like Wolves. It's one of those teams I like. Everyone has a second team, and that's one of them. So hopefully, yeah. But Forest, if I had to pick a team right now, is my surprise package, I would say.
Oh, yeah, solid answer, bro. Solid answer. What about you, Reese? Give us a deep dive on who's going to surprise us.
Well, first of all, Steve Cooper is, in my opinion, one of the best managers in the world. I think he honestly, I think he did an immense job at Swansea, taking them to the playoffs. He left and they almost went, I wouldn't say they almost went down last year, but they weren't too far off the drop. He came into Nottingham Forest when they were pretty much near the relegation zone in October, and absolutely hammered the league pretty much. Went up and they were one of the better teams in the league. He's done great work with people like Brennan Johnson, who we know obviously from the Wales team. So yeah, I think that they're not going to be a problem this year at all. They'll do well, and they've signed a few good players. Look at Jesse Lingard signing for them. That's quite a sign in for a newly promoted side to throw 200,000 a week at someone. Also a gamble, but I think a good gamble. So yeah, I think Nottingham Forest, and also I'm going to put my Newcastle hat back on. I think we'll be strong. We were in the top 3 teams since November last year in terms of points gained, and so if they carry that form in, there's no reason why they can't finish 7th. The target for Newcastle this season has to be 8th, and if they can try and finish above Man United or West Ham, that's the kind of ceiling for them this year. Nottingham Forest, I think 10th or 11th is achievable. If they can come up and hit the ground running, and obviously Newcastle play Norwich on the Nottingham Forest in the first game of the season. So I suppose we'll see where those two clubs are at.
Yeah,
there's always humour me Spoon and Reece pulls out his since November trophy for Newcastle. Top 3 since November.
When you haven't won a trophy since the 60s, you'll take whatever you can get.
Yeah. No, that's a fair shout, lads. They're all very good answers. The one team I was going to say Newcastle actually as well, Reece, FYI. But I thought Reece will probably say Newcastle. So I'll play maybe a different approach. The one team I really enjoyed watching last season, and I think they've laid some solid foundations to build again, is Crystal Palace. I really like what Vieira's doing. I think the loss of Conor Gallagher will be, very much felt because he is a Jack Russell. That lad is everywhere. Like I love Conor. Well, bar the penalty missed the other day, which was
pretty shocking.
It's so bad. But yeah, I think what Vieira's building at Palace is going a little under the radar. He's got some really good young players. They signed a lad from Derby. I can't pronounce his name. Malcolm Boe. I think it might something along those lines. And I watched him against Manchester United the other day in pre-season, and he's a very, very talented boy. So keep an eye out for him. So yeah, Palace would be my choice. Now, yeah, we'll see how it goes. Now, speaking of talented boys, moving forward, I wanted to touch upon the big transfer. Well, what was supposed to be the big transfer summer, but it never happened, was Kylian Mbappe. So I'll start with Crookz. Crookz, do you think Mbappe made the right decision to stay in a PSG? Bearing in mind he's now like the king of France and he controls transfers and yeah. Is it the right decision or would you have left?
It's difficult, but like if I was it's quite hard. Like obviously they've probably thrown money at him, money that we probably but he's probably got silly bonuses in there somewhere. So you can't really judge from an outside perspective. But what we know, obviously, he seems like he's going to be a big part of what the club's vision is moving forward. So I don't understand. He might as well be captain, director of football, and he might as well be cooking the lunches as well. And it seems that's what they've given him, free reign of everything. Yeah. Personally, I think he probably needed another new challenge. But even if he did, obviously it's Mbappe and he's world class and stuff like that. But if he did go to Madrid, he's still got to try and move out some of that front three. And we saw how devastating they were last year. That front three, how many games did they win purely based on their pace and getting behind teams and stuff like that. Saw in the Champions League final when they beat Liverpool. So I think I don't think he's made the decision based on pure footballing terms. I think he's based his decision to stay in PSG for the general whole package of his life and stuff like that. And he is the main man at PSG. I know you got Messi there, but I think Messi's he's gone now. I think same as Ronaldo. They're both at the end of their careers now, and it's time for the next lot. And I think maybe his breakaway from PSG and going over to Madrid would have been that signal. Now I'm going to be the main man in Madrid. I'm going to be the #1 world player right now. But yeah, again, I just think he's made it more on just a deal on the whole package rather than purely footballing terms.
Yeah, I think I agree. Messi and Ronaldo obviously plays with Messi at the moment. I think Messi's in the winter of his career. Has a skill set that Mbappe, perhaps it's the only side of Mbappe that has yet to develop, things like passing, maybe some dribbling. So I think he's in a good place to learn from one of, if not the best ever. And he is definitely at the moment head and shoulders clear of anyone else in world football, in my opinion. You have to ask the question, if he was going to leave, then he would have had to leave for Real Madrid. Real Madrid and Barcelona are both in financial disarray over the last few years. Is he going to join a club that's significantly better than where he is now? Play with players who are significantly better. You look at players like Modric and Kroos, who are, still performing at a good level, but they won't be for much longer. You look at Karim Benzema, who he would have to displace or be shunting out wide. I don't think he wants to play out wide. Then you look at the money involved, and you think, well, for the money that they're offering him, is the allure of Real Madrid that strong, and that much stronger than playing with Messi and in your home country? If it was me, I'd have made the same decision.
What do you think, Becky?
So it's two parts for me. So do I think he should have left? Yes, I think he should have left last year and seasons before that, because I don't think the PSG project works. But like Reece touched upon, it came down to what options did he really have? And I'm not sure Real Madrid, like Reece said again, was particularly that tempting to tempt him away from what PSG were going to offer him. To go back to what I mean by the PSG project, that club didn't exist before 1990 something. They've come on the scene, massive money that come into it, and they've tried to buy the Champions League. That's what they want, right? They've won the league over and over, although they do let it slip a couple of years. I think when Poch came in for the first year, how he managed to lose that league, I'll never know. But the PSG project doesn't work for me. They changed their manager like the weather. And then you got that front three is obviously amazing, as good as any front three that there is. But I just don't think that club knows where it's going. And I think Mbappe, possibly one of the best players on the planet, if not the best player on the planet, while he's in the best form of his career. I know it will last, quite a few more years, you would think, needs to go somewhere else. But the problem was where. I know Liverpool were talking about, he could replace, Salah or someone in that front three, but there's no way they could afford him. Barcelona in disarray. It was just really Madrid, wasn't it? He wasn't going to go to City. He wasn't going to go to Bayern Munich. So I think he was just kind of like, well, I do want to go, but there's no really for me to go. So, yeah, and like you say, he's the king of Paris now. So you might as well just enjoy that for another season or two. But yeah, I do think he needs to leave. I just don't know where is the answer to that.
I just don't know where he goes and then gets better.
Say it again.
I don't really see how he can leave and get better. I just don't. He's absolutely unbelievable. He's flying at the moment.
Yeah, but he's not winning and contesting. I know they got to the final once, didn't they, against Bayern Munich, but
they should have won as well.
Yeah, that was their chance. But you see them get knocked out most years, quarterfinal. They lost to United when we were dreadful. And players like Mbappe, they need to be getting to finals, winning those big trophies regularly, and he isn't. So, Real Madrid, they have a new project every so many years. They won the Champions League as they are, and I wouldn't surprise me in the next 2 or 3 years if they sort of develop a brand new team of stars, and perhaps he could head up that, because Benzema's not going to last forever. But I just don't think PSG is the be all end all at all. I really don't.
Yeah, no, I agree, lads. Yeah, I agree. I mean, going back to what we've done, obviously we've done a bit of a deep dive into the who's who and the what's what. So let's get some predictions, because we're always pretty accurate with these, right? Yeah. So Crooks, being that you are the big brain on this podcast today, I'm going to give you top 4, bottom 3, Champions League and Balon d'Or. So who's coming in the top 4? Who's coming in the bottom 3? Who's winning the Champions League? And who is going to get the Balon d'Or?
Right, so I'll start with top 4. I think City will win it again. I think Liverpool will come second. Now it gets slightly harder, but probably Chelsea will do enough if, like, the likes of, like, you know, Chilwell and stuff like that, Reece James, if they can stay fit all season, I think them two just devastate teams. And then this part, like, I think it's a 3-way shootout, obviously, between Spurs, United, Arsenal. And it could generally, like, could be any of them. United, you know, with the United hat on, I want to say them. I want to say they'll have the impact, but I think it's a season too early for that. I think there's still adaptation, still players that need to come in. So I put them just, you know, there 6th or somewhere around there. And then I would probably say Spurs. I think with Conte having the full pre-season with them, seeming to get signings that he wants back in January and now in the summer, I'd say probably Spurs then coming in for the 4th spot. And then I think that Spurs, United, Arsenal is going to be a lot. I think that's going to be more of the interesting part at the end of the season. I think City will just, you know, take it away again this year. Yeah. Relegation, Fulham just go straight in there because they just love coming up and down anyway. So Bournemouth, even though obviously they were good in the Championship last year, I think they will go down. And then I would probably say I just don't see where, like, Everton go from here.
Yeah.
They struggled obviously at the end of last season. They, you know, just I think they stayed up through a bit more spirit than anything. They've lost obviously with Richarlison. I don't really know, have they, like, brought anyone in really?
They brought in Tarkowski, and they brought in, I think they're bringing in Harry Winks.
Yeah, so they're not like major, like, you know, signings, are they? Let's be honest, they're not going to go anywhere. So I would probably say Everton would probably be the other team I think will go down. What else you want? You wanted the Champions League as well, innit?
Champions League, yeah.
I think the Champions League is one of the ones that, like, are always just so open, and literally, I think it's just like Madrid showing that, like, they weren't that good, but, like, they managed to turn games around when they needed to, and all of a sudden they've won the Champions League. You know, I don't think many people before the beginning of the season would have said, like, oh yeah, Real Madrid, they're going to win it. You're going to have your Liverpool, Cities, all them up there. But I wouldn't, like, it depends on who, like, buy and bring in, but I wouldn't be surprised if Bayern Munich were up there. But, like, I still think it's so hard to look past City at the moment just because of the Haaland signing, which then goes quite nicely into the Balon d'Or, which if he hits the ground running, does well in the Prem, I think, like, it could easily be the year, like, Haaland actually does go out and win it. I think he could easily, you know, score 30 plus goals in the Prem, and, you know, between all competitions, and then look relatively good, take City to maybe the Champions League title, and then obviously just round it all off. The only thing he struggles with is that he's not in the World Cup. Norway aren't in the World Cup today, so that's it. You know, someone could have a tidy season and be in the World Cup, which will help them their case for the Balon d'Or. But, you know, I think that's where it goes. I think that's all the predictions you want, isn't it?
It is, yeah. No, it is, mate. Yeah. What about you, Reece? What are you saying?
Well, yeah, I love the idea of Everton going down, but I love the idea of that. I wanted that last season, but Fulham Gunners, we'll be waving them goodbye, and we'll be welcoming back Norwich. That's the yearly tradition at this stage. They'll be gone. I think Bournemouth will be gone. They don't really have appeared to strengthen their squad. I like Kiefer Moore, but is he a Premier League centre forward? I'm not sure. He's playing with Rotherham like about a year and a half ago. I would love David Brooks to come back after beating cancer and to be really great. Is he gonna? I'm not sure. It'll be a big ask. So I do think Bournemouth are goners, and then, like you said, you've got that third spot. Leeds will be awful this season. I'm pretty confident. The only player they've signed of any note for me is Sinistera, and we still don't know how he's going to come in and do in the Premier League. For the record, I think he will be okay, but I think their defence is just awful. I told you lads at the start of last season they were going to struggle, and they did struggle, and I think they will struggle again. Any Premier League side that features Luke Ayling is going to struggle, in my opinion. So I think it will be Leeds who do go, but I would absolutely love it if Everton went. And to be fair, Everton are bang average on paper. It's not even out of the question. I would love it if they're playing in that new stadium in the Championship. In terms of the top four, yeah, Man City top, Liverpool second. Obviously, that picks itself, especially with Haaland coming in. I do think Darwin Núñez, there's a lot of people out there criticising him. Trent Alexander-Arnold only completed 23% of his crosses last season, but still managed to put over 250 successful ones in the box. And Darwin Núñez is 6'2", so could score a lot of goals potentially if he does get the game time, possibly. But I think they will still finish second. Third, yeah, again, it is tough, isn't it? Third and fourth. Chelsea, I think, will finish third. I think Thiago Silva has got another season in him. We've seen this morning that Jules Koundé is going to go to Barcelona and not actually Chelsea, which is a blow for them. But I think Thiago Silva does have another season in him. He's shown already at Chelsea. He's revolutionised that back four. He's really got them sturdy again. And they've also got Azpilicueta to fill in there if need be. And then you got Koulibaly coming in, who could be anything, but signs point to him being a solid centre-half, with Reece James and Chilwell, who are proven really, really great players. I think Reece James actually is the best right back in the world, possibly at the moment, maybe bar Cancelo. So I think they'll be strong. A lot will depend on whether Sterling hit the ground running, and if they are able to bring in a striker at all to replace Lukaku. Fourth spot, the temptation is to say Spurs, but then that would be me picking a team that's got Eric Dyer in it. So that's tough then, isn't it? I think Arsenal's basically team of kids are just a bit young to. They proved at the end of last season they just didn't have the mental toughness to see it through in the end. Their heads completely went after Spurs, and Newcastle played them off the park. Are they a bit immature at this stage? Yes, I think they'll miss out. So I think Spurs will get it. And again, with Man United, anything can happen between now and deadline day. They could sign 3 players for 100 million, and they could sign no one at all. So a lot will depend on that for Man United as well. But I think, yeah, for me, City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham.
All right, cool. What about the Balon d'Or for you, Reece? Who you pick in Champions League as well?
Right, a Champions League winner. It's hard to look past Man City and Pep, isn't it? Eventually they will win it. Eventually it will happen. Likewise with PSG, eventually they'll win it. I think, always you're going to have to predict Man City to be the latter stages. So I think they'll be strong. So probably them. Balon d'Or, I think a lot will depend on the outcome of the World Cup. I don't know when the vote is. I think it's like late December. So if France win it, then yeah, Mbappe, because he's quite clearly the best. I don't think, actually, it could be a toss-up between two. I think, though, that Mbappe will just edge Joe Linton in the end.
What about you, Becky? What are you saying?
Yeah, this is a tough one. The top four I'm going to start with. It's a tough one because there's still so much that can happen, I think, in terms of signings, especially for, perhaps United. And I said to you guys earlier, United are the only team at the top 6 that have sort of major question marks over manager and how the team's going to play. I think City will win the league again. Probably go slightly more controversial next and go with Chelsea to finish second. I think it was crookz mentioned about if those fullbacks stay fit, they are lethal. They've signed Koulibaly. How that's gonna fit in. I don't know. He's 31 now, but I think it was 30 million they spent on him. You got Thiago Silva as well. That defense is pretty solid, and maybe with another season they can get Werner, a bit more consistent. They've shifted off Lukaku, so maybe they'll be a little bit more fluid, a bit more consistent. So I go for them second. Liverpool third. I put them below Chelsea because I've just got a weird feeling that the Liverpool sort of sort of there and thereabouts dominance is going to kind of come, or is going to slowly start coming to an end. They've got a bit of an aging squad as well. They've got rid of Mane, they've put Nunes in there, and they signed that lad from Fulham, is it Carvalho? But apart from that, I don't think they've really addressed much other areas, considering they didn't win anything. Last year, all they've done is 1 in, 1 out in the front three. So I think they'll go third, and then fourth. Agree with you. With you both, it's difficult. But I think that fourth spot is completely up for grabs. I don't think any team will have to play amazingly well to get it. Last year, we laughed that nobody wanted it because it changed around so many times. I have gone for United. I am putting my United hat on and sort of banking on them making another 1 or 2 more signings that I think will strengthen my prediction for them to finish fourth. I mentioned earlier how I don't rate Spurs' window apart from Basuma, so and it is Spurs. It's just Spursy, isn't it? They've done it once last season. I think that's the last time they're going to finish top 4 for a couple of years, and then Conte will bugger off as well then. So City, Chelsea, Liverpool, United, bottom 3 by Fulham, by Bournemouth, and I think Leeds are going to go down with them. They got rid of Rafinha and Calvin Phillips, were 2 of their best players last season. And they've just signed a load of players that I haven't really heard of. Like Tyler Adams is one of them. There's a couple of players that Jesse Marsh has spent, not big money, but 20 million here, 25 million there. And I don't think that's going to work. I think they'll go. Balon d'Or, have we actually had the winner of the one from last season yet? It hasn't happened, has it?
Messi won it last year.
Yeah, but obviously Madrid won the Champions League. Yeah. Because you say it was an ex-Balon d'Or winner, that's still yet to be announced, isn't it?
So the vote will be in December.
Yeah. So, which I think, if you ask me that one for the season just gone, that would be Benzema. But if you want me to sort of, not to play around with the questioning, but
no, I know what you mean.
Yeah, the one once this up and coming season is over, I'm going to say Kevin De Bruyne. Because there's question marks over Haaland. There's no question marks over Kevin De Bruyne. They'll be at the latter stages of the Champions League for sure. I don't think they'll win it, but then I think Belgium, what can they do in the World Cup? So if De Bruyne has a similar season to last season, they win the league, a couple of cups, Belgium get pretty far, then I think that he could be a contender for the Balon d'Or. And then lastly, Champions League winner, I'm going to say Bayern Munich. They're usually thereabouts. Yeah, they got rid of Lewandowski, but they got Mane in. They've sent that Ryan Gravenberch from Ajax. So yeah, I think it's about time that Bayern Munich won it again.
Yeah. Okay, interesting choices. I'll streamline mine. So top 4, I'm going City, Liverpool, Spurs and United. I'm going to sneak United in because I have to. I doubt about them, but there's doubts about a few of them. I'm still not convinced with Chelsea. Spurs, I think as long as you've got Harry Kane up top, you're always going to score goals. Like Reece said, Arsenal are a bit immature. So that's my top 4. Bottom 3, I want to see a big shake-up. I want Southampton gone, bit of a nothing club. Everton, goodbye to you as well. And I'm no real fan of Leeds anyway, so they can go. Champions League, Shakhtar Donetsk. I think because they're Ukrainian and we're now giving everything to the Ukraine, we're going to let Shakhtar win for humanitarian purposes. So I look forward to seeing them lift it. And I think, Becky, you're right. Benzema, I think, will get this Ballon d'Or. The next one is heavily dependent on the World Cup because the lads that get to the back end of a Champions League final usually get to a World Cup final as well. So, man, I suppose whoever wins, I keep forgetting there's a World Cup. Like, honestly, people have mentioned it, and I just thought, what are you talking about, a World Cup? They're like, yeah, the one coming up in December. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that one, yeah. So, man, I don't know. The next Ballon d'Or after that, I mean, De Bruyne is not a bad choice. I kind of go with that as well. But, yeah, those are my choices. Shakhtar for the season.
Always one controversial person, isn't there? 3 promoted teams all to stay up. When's the last time that happened? And then Shakhtar to win the Champions League.
Oh, we live in strange times, so it's hard to say what's going to happen. But beyond that, lads, do you have anything else for anything else?
Good for me.
No, all good. All right, Crookz, thank you for coming on, bro. Very much appreciated. FPL League will be back up and running. We'll get that set up this weekend, and you are technically the man to beat as it stands. In terms of everything else in between, thank you again everybody for watching. Like and subscribe, all that good jazz. If you've got any comments that you want to leave, leave them below, or get in touch with us on Twitter and whatnot. We'll put Crooks's Twitter, IG, all that good stuff on there as well, so you can follow them up too. And we will be back shortly with the next episode. So, people, take care. Ciao for now.